Hi, I'm David Neese with EV World News, and we're here today to talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm pleased to have special guest Adib Kaldi from Simple with us. How's it going, Adib?
Good, David. Thanks again for having me. Uh, Always a pleasure and always a good time on Friday to take a look at what we can do in the new weeks.
Yeah, you were here with me a couple of weeks ago, and I saw, what was it, a Lucid run? You had a
Yeah,
pretty good
it
run on
was,
that Lucid option that you picked
yes,
on
sir.
the show. And would you get a 225% winner? I
Something
saw in the
like that.
Discord group.
Two hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yeah, 250%. It was a it's a good play, and again, we did it for the love of the game, and for when we do analyze things, so we'll get to that a little bit later. We like to make sure again we put our money where our mouth is and take what we say. And it's all good. The market's had a tremendous run in this last 2 weeks. I can't even attribute it to a single stock. Everything has done pretty good. But that just goes to show it, follows certain metrics that we look at when we analyze, the markets from technical perspectives, as opposed to what's fundamentally going on, which complements it more so in the longer run, as opposed to the shorter run, where you can find these opportunities, take
Now,
advantage.
that stock market runs a lot of that because of the announcement that not only are they kind of freezing interest rates, but they may bring them down next year. Do you think
That's
that
right.
they're already starting to value that into the market?
Look, I about a year ago, I said that we're gonna, stop at around 575. I believe was the benchmark around there. That was my top for the Fed. That's where they were. They are 5.5 right now. So, and here we are. We stopped and we're starting to do the cuts. So, where do we see as a landing spot? Probably around the 5 mark, 475 on the Fed rate, and that's as best as it's going to get. The markets, I think, are due for a little bit more pain and a hard realization of where we are today. But I'm just speculating, and we stand to see, of course, how we're doing.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's start by taking a look at what Tesla's doing right now and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tesla, a couple of weeks ago, we took a look at the technical charts. Of course, fundamentally, from fundamental perspective, Tesla, you know, it to me is overvalued. But I still like the stock. I support the car, the technology that they have, and of course, being the leading factor in the industry. When we looked at Tesla, I believe it would have been around the 220 mark or 220 or 230 mark. We were speculative in saying that we're going to see it around the 250 to 270 zone. Here we are today at 252. And we kind of drew this line, I believe, on one of your earlier shows. It's been respected. Volume is steady. Earnings are coming up around the 24th of January. That's going to be for the year ended of 2023. There's lots of potential there for a big play, and I think that until earnings, Tesla is going to continue trending upwards. Again, hitting that mark of 270 before we see any kind of major shakedown. What this tells me, of course, is that with the VIX being so low, if you look at the VIX right now, it's pretty low. Volatility has been abysmal in the market. The VIX is at 12 as of late. And I think it's going to continue holding low volatility here coming into the Santa Claus rally and the new year. And we've seen it. We called the Santa Claus rally 2 weeks ago, and it happened. The markets have been roaring.
Well, there's a Tesla's been kind of funny. You talk about news and stuff. So they've lowered prices on several models a few times. They've had, which isn't great. It's great news for consumers, it's not great news for the company.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, they just released them Cybertruck about 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
Started getting released to the public. But then news came out that the Model 3 is probably not going to be getting any federal U.S. federal tax credits next year.
Yes, I
And
heard about that.
yeah, so that's kind of a disaster in of itself for the
Hmm.
company in that that's a pretty big driver for keeping the price of it, because at a certain point, with that factored in, it was as cheap to own and operate as a Toyota Corolla. And so that kind of took some of the wind out of the sails there. But there are some other options as far as when people lease an SU or lease an EV. There's some things the dealers can do to still qualify for the tax credit,
Absolutely.
eh, with some weird lease magic that
Now
they're
I
able to
heard
do with the government.
Now I heard there's been some recalls, ongoing with the Tesla autopilot feature.
Well, and that just came out in the last day or two.
That's right. That's right. So I was seeing that, but despite that, Tesla's performing well. It hasn't been shaken down at all. It's holding steady today. It's flat for the day, but it's holding steady.
Well, good, good,
Yeah.
good. Um, any thoughts on this? Are we at a spot that would be like a good spot to sell puts or anything like that?
Yeah, again, last time again, not any financial advice, our own views on Tesla were that the 225 or 220 puts, if you were to sell them, you could even hold, cash covered puts, meaning, if you were to own the stock and you were to write the put on it, meaning you collect the premium, but still see the rise in the stock. If you time it properly, you can get kind of a double whammy. So some of our analysts at Simple Picks for the community do help out a lot of our students and people that want to learn option strategies. I'm sure you've seen Brendan's had tremendous results and gains with his strategies. You know, to us, I'd say the 240 right now, where we just around this breakout zone that's occurred. Again, it's respected the line that we've kind of seen where we said the 225 puts would have been good to write.
Mhm.
Today, I would say the 240 or 240 to 242 puts would be good to write. Again, you're getting some form of a small breakout here on the resistance that's been descending around this 250 zone. I would say where there's a fair market value, and buyers are buying. How long are buyers buying for? I say probably until earnings. So from here on till middle or end of January, I would say it's a bet that you can take. Again, it's not financial advice, and all of our views are things that we decide to do if we see as that's why they're our opinions.
Right.
So
All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's move on and take a look at Lucid.
Lucid, yeah, that's the star play. That's the one. I mean, I took some Tesla options the other day. Also played the 240 calls. I think at the time, and they did well, but not as well as Lucid. So if you recall on your show, I liked it around here. I said it's going to break out, and we should, I myself, position for some form of calls. And David, yourself, I remember you asked, if there's to the audience, we can tell them about any kind of call to take on this particular stock. It was the $5 call. I really liked that one. January 19th, it was 20 cents at the time. It's running you $20 per call. Pretty cheap for where the market was at. It was at $4.20. Around again here where we had highlighted it. And as of today, or as of yesterday, when I took profit on majority of the calls that I have, but I still have a bunch of them because of the time that we have, another month to go.
Mhm.
But it hit as high as 530. So we were able to capture a gain of roughly over 250% on the actual options itself on the stock. Since the day that we were looking at it, 35% riser, give or take. So 30% riser. So this is a great company, Lucid. I like it. I continue to hold some of these options, as I said. Again, after 200% gain, you just want to make sure you realize some of your profits. That's goes to anything, but the trajectory is looking excellent, David. I think we're going to come back and test, the $7.50 mark here in the next, few months or so. Can't really put a timeline on it, but I can say that I do feel bullish on Lucid, especially with all the news that they have going on and their capitalization. I know we were looking at their books; they got some pretty good numbers on their books. They raised a lot of capital. It seems like that's why the stock had taken hits throughout the year. When we look at the long-term view, Lucid was as high as $53, and here we are trading at all-time lows, right? So when you're looking at the electric vehicle world and these type of stocks, you want to take the bet on them when they're at their lowest, not when they're at their highest, right? So that's really where I look. It's an $11 billion company. There's value there. There's assets there. So speculatively, I like Lucid a lot. I'm going to consider, covering Lucid continuously. Looking more into their fundamental aspect, but more so their price action, to get a squeeze out here of around $8 on the stock. Really, that's where my target is. Effectively, that'll put us 75 to 100%, into the gain territory here in terms of the stock. To me, that is just a milestone for a company that was worth 10 times this amount when it was debuted. So
What's interesting about that is, as I mentioned to you before, I believe that the Al Saud family owns 60% of Lucid, and so when you have one of the wealthiest families on the planet being the Saudi royal family owning
yes,
60% of the company, I just don't see them ever letting it fail. And the fact that they're
that's right.
moving production to Saudi Arabia to be the first Saudi Arabian automotive manufacturer, it's still basically an American company, but all of the investment capital has come from oil, which is
Absolutely.
kind of fascinating how that's happened. But
It's the hedge. It's the hedge,
it's
right?
the
That's what they're
hedge,
doing.
right? Yeah, but anyways, Lucid won't fail. They did make some mistakes, I feel, in going all um, sedans as opposed to SUVs, but I think that their Gravity SUV is going to be a huge hit,
Hmm.
and I see good things for Lucid in the future. All right, well, we can go ahead and we can move on to the next one. The
Sure.
next one's one we haven't covered before, at least I haven't with you. We're going to cover Greenland Tech. It's GTEC. And I have an interview in 3 weeks on the show. I'll have the CEO on here.
Lovely.
And the Greenland Tech makes motors for tractors, and they switched over into electric motors. They make almost triple the profit margins on the electric motors for tractors, and they've since started doing. They have a division called Heavy HEVI that makes electric heavy machinery. They make forklifts, front end loaders, and excavators currently, and they're going to that are all electric, and they're doing all right with that. And I was talking to I met the CEO at a conference last week, and he was telling me they are losing money, but they have a burn rate of $2.1 million per year, and they're sitting on plenty of cash. I mean, they could last for 10 years on their cash if they had to. So they're not in any danger of going away, and they're not really in a subsidized part of the EV industry. So what's
Hmm.
interesting is they're accomplishing what they're accomplishing without, rebates from from the government and all this other aid, and they're still making it happen. And they seem to be one of the less fragile aspects of the whole EV industry.
Hmm.
What do you see when
Very
you look at their
interesting.
stock?
I'm just looking at the fundamental piece right now. Um, to me, I need to do a little bit more further analysis just because it's a small cap company. So, when you look at the small cap companies, it's what is it, about 150 million? What are they at? What's their cap? 36 million is their market cap. So,
Not a
they
big company by any
no,
stretch.
it's yeah, no, absolutely. But their numbers are looking all right in terms of I guess what they're doing asset wise. Their liabilities are managed against their cash flows. As you said, the outflows haven't been tremendous. So that's good to see. Um, when do they fully make profit? They've done. They've had some. They've had some okay last quarter.
Didn't really touch on that.
Hmm.
Didn't really touch on that. That's a good question for when I get him on for an interview.
Cool. I'll definitely tune into that one. 300 employees, founded 2006. Interesting. Interesting. They don't have the whole they don't have the whole stock on the market. So only about 50% of their companies trading on the market right now, which is
The other
good. Which
50%.
is good. It's private.
Yeah,
The 50% is private. That means they believe in everything they're doing.
right.
That's good. Good. Cool. Awesome. Let's take a look at the stock. So GTech on a weekly time frame. Oh, how high was this company? Ooh. Hey, it's found some grounds. It's found some buyers. And looks like this is around that first second quarter that they had a good second quarter. This is what gave them a good. This is. See, they had their breakout here. The second quarter. That was when they reported good earnings. Yep, right here. That's right. So um, that's good. That's really good. Let me see their earnings. Hey, they made good money, and that was the surprise. Now, obviously, I have to dig into why. And then in this earnings, they lost the same amount and and a bit. So there's a surprise of 10% here, and there's a surprise of 8.6% here. So it's equaled itself out for the year. So now you really got to dig in and see what their expenditures are, and what where really they're able to scale their products, or what they're able to do. But I'll tell you something here, David.
Mhm.
I am as a speculator. I would I would buy GTech at the 225 mark. I
Mhm.
think that would be my entry point if I was to play this. Now I may not get the 225 mark, so I would start buying anywhere as high as 260, which is pretty close to where we are today. It's up that 8 cents today, which I this to me tells me, there's movement starting to happen. Some guys that potentially are buyers are seeing what I can see, and then they come in and potentially do a technical play. Again, it's a $36 million market cap, meaning, if you and I were to go buy, a certain number, it could have an impact, because depending on the volume, it's 21,000, so um, if we were to do some math here, 21,000 by $2.70. There's only been about $57,000 worth of volume into this company today. So that's not a lot of volume, right?
No.
So that's again, structurally wise. Look, you see, it's just slowly dipping. But structurally wise, I like where it's at. It broke out of this downtrend, obviously. What sparked this was the initial report here that gave it this upper grounds. Obviously, they didn't perform around this earnings, but you know what? Shareholders liked them anyway and bought them out of this rut. So I like what's going on here. If I'm a speculator, I would get in around, like I said, the 225 mark. I'll even I'll even put a line in the sand here and say that I would like this to just continue on this type of trajectory. And if I can get in around here and ride some form of momentum, this would be excellent. Now, if we do break down to, this area here and the buys aren't holding, I would just probably exit with a small loss. So, my trade plan would be kind of like this on their weeklies, or their monthly chart. And here's their monthly chart again. Every company's had its glory, around debut time, I guess, in the market here. Probably what I assume happened is some shareholders, when they spun it onto the stock market, since it's been privately held since 2006, they wanted to take their profits. And that's why there was run up, because they took their profits. But the company, from a uh, capitalization perspective, they do have still those assets of $100+ million, right? So Um, it's just a matter of what the market sees you at. So, long story short, David, in my analysis of this company, just on the spot here, no prior knowledge of anything, I am bullish on it. How bullish? Not that bullish, but I am bullish. And if I get the opportunity, like I said, to enter in this zone of 225 and above, I'll be a buyer.
You know what's interesting? We've looked at three stocks, and you look at how big Tesla is market cap, and
Yeah,
then it's huge compared to Lucid, and then this was just tiny compared to them. Yet they're all, you know,
absolutely.
big, on the bigger boards. Let's take a look at Rivian next.
Okay. Gold has really moved down quite heavy in this last 10 minutes that we've been chatting. Anyhow, Rivian. All right. Rivian is done really well. I heard about them in the news yesterday. They signed big agreements with
AT&T.
AT&T, right?
Yes.
So very good. BG, our analyst at SimplePex, he's a big fan of Rivian. I think he banked out on Rivian. He bought it around $17. Probably, I believe, around the same time that we were all playing, this EV, and really the markets were just doing really good. I liked Rivian. I actually told a lot of my students I'm going to buy Rivian around $17 or 17 and a half. I didn't get to it. Got too busy, unfortunately, and yeah, it's done tremendously well. These two gap ups here, 8%, another 13, so it's up over 25% here. So excellent. Nothing bad to say about Rivian. I think it's gonna continue its bullish trajectory here. It's really being tested again. Rivian hasn't been around a long time for me to be able to give a proper kind of technical reading on things, but in a shorter time frame. Again, you can see multiple channels being broken clearly since November. Rivian was $15, so that's a whole $7 a share. It's almost 40% gain since then. So nothing bad to say about this company. I think their trajectory is upwards. AT&T's not a deal with them. What was the deal about, David?
Just they're going to start using delivery vans. So the deal had been for up until just about a month ago
Hmm.
that only Amazon could have the delivery vans. So they were limited to, but remember, Amazon owns like 12% of the company as well. Okay. So part of this was they're now no longer obligated to only deliver vans to Amazon, they can deliver to new customers. So up till now, it's been exclusively an Amazon product. So now other
They
people
had
are
to
going to
save it.
get that.
They had to save it. That's what they did. It was a save it. It was a save it move. I think.
Yeah.
I think because it saved it. It did.
Hmm.
So I mean, Rivian's good, man. Anything you tie Amazon to, you're gonna have the buyers, you're gonna have the volume, you're gonna have the institutional level, right? And that's what matters. You know, with all due respect to GTech, company like small market cap like that, uh, depends really on their strategy, of course, and the
Right.
technology that they have. But uh, you know, when you get that kind of institutional exposure, like Rivian and Tesla, it's money that pumps in that sometimes you have too much of, you don't even know what to do with. So it's super belief in the technology, and that's because the buyers need to be nested somewheres that actually makes results in revenue, or potential results in revenue in the value of Tesla. Like I said, I'm a fan of Tesla, but I think they're grossly overvalued. I would not hold Tesla stock myself. I would just again play the options around it and trade it. But to hold it long term for me just means that you're gonna have to keep beating the market as Tesla. Are you going to keep beating the market as Tesla forever, or are the other automakers going to make up to you? I don't
Well,
know. I don't know. That's
for
not
the
my opinion.
past 3, 4 years, Tesla's been valued as a tech company, not a car company.
That's
And
right.
what's happening is people are now starting to bring its value down to more of a car company. And these other EV stocks are all valued more as a car company. I mean, you know how we looked at Lucid, how it was 10 times as much at one point, and it's come down. Well, it's kind of the same boat. They're being valued as car companies now and not as tech companies because it seems like the a lot of companies, while they may not be where Tesla is, they're not far behind them.
Hmm.
You know, there's a few of them that are catching up, and I think that's a lot of it. And one of the things I look for in the market is who's fragile and who's not. And I really see Tesla, Lucid, Rivian as being less fragile than, say, GM, you know, or Stellantis.
Well,
And
mhm.
you know, it's interesting to look at the quandary. And I look at right now in Europe, the Chinese EV makers are really hurting the German automakers. And eventually this is going to happen to the US. And so in the US, EV sales from a year ago are up 50%. Okay. And new EV registrations are up
I
50%
think
from
it's
a
the
year
trust
earlier.
factor. It's the trust factor. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, changes are coming in the EV
Yeah,
market, whether people
I agree.
believe it or want it.
I agree. My only thing is, David, is that say companies like Ford and again, I haven't seen their commercial success yet, but companies that are automotive giants, the Toyotas and the Mitsubishis and the you name it, Hondas, you name it. Okay, when their EV options start to really come to scale, with economies, okay, who do you trust more? Tesla or your traditional automotive company that's been around for over 100 years, right? And I think that's where we're going to start to really see a shift in technology and how really EV is going to play a part in our lives. We're also seeing, obviously, a lot of political support for EVs. With all the
Mhm.
tax cuts and et cetera. Obviously, Tesla, yes, didn't get that, but with these ongoing tax cuts and pushes towards EV, it's interesting. I don't own an electric vehicle. My brother owns an electric vehicle. He loves it, swears by it. And I stand to see when the time will be when most of people will be forced more so to to migrate over because of
Now,
just the
one of
landscape.
the important points is the Tesla losing the tax credits only applies to the Model 3. So like it's not affecting the Model Y and some of their higher end cars where enough battery components are made in the United States. It's just that on the Model 3, in order to keep the cost down a little bit, more
Hmm.
of those components in the battery are come from China.
Hmm.
And, you know, that's a bit of a challenge. And there's been some arguments made that US industry isn't able to transition to making that battery technology in the US fast enough to meet demand. And that's part of a bit of a challenge as well. So my next two are a little bit off plays and just VFS, which is VinFast. We talked about this before. This is kind of a bizarro one. It went public a couple months ago, went to this crazy high valuation. Vietnamese EV
Yes,
maker only selling
yes,
in California at the moment.
yes, yes. And I said I wouldn't touch this with a metal pole, right? I think so.
Yes.
I wouldn't touch this still. I mean, I don't know.
Is it flat
Is it,
now?
is this the one? Was this the one? No,
VF.
I don't know. I don't know if this was the one.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It was one. It was
I mean,
VFS. Yeah. This is.
look at this, man. What the hell did they do here? What did they do here?
Yeah. For it was
What
the
is
guy.
this?
So what's interesting is only 1% of the company's stock is in trade. So
You're kidding.
the company owner
You're
and
kidding.
other investors own 99% of this. Only 1% is in the float.
What? Um, you, what is this? And there's three employees,
Yeah.
and it's worth $16 billion.
Yeah,
How
I
is
had
this?
somebody send me a thing looking for people who might be interested in investing in a project that is mostly owned by the CEO of this company. Oh, I thought, well, that was kind of interesting.
Wait, what? How did they get on the stock market with these financials? How
I
are they
guess
worth? What?
I
Oh,
know it's crazy, isn't it?
did they get like an injection of capital? They did. They raised money here, but
Oh yeah, yeah, no, they've got a few billion in assets.
I get it.
Yeah, yeah, and
Um,
they had a couple billion in
I would,
expenses. They've
I
spent
would,
some money to get where they're at.
I wouldn't touch this.
Yeah.
I
What
just, I
was
just, I just, I'm scooters is not my market. I don't understand. I mean, electric scooters have actually done really well in many cities. I'll be honest with you. Okay, and they actually make money, and they do withstand time in terms of the maintenance and the cost versus the return on it. It's an excellent idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a hater. It's just I don't understand it. Not my industry. And when something like this happens in the stock and the float, that I'm trading against the market. You know, the market's buyers and sellers, like you, me, and you. You know, buyers and sellers. Everybody's doing the same thing. If I have to trade against only 1.5% of that float, and at any moment, you know, the CEO could decide to release another 1% of their float,
right,
the stock just turned over twice. The whole like trading, you know, what happened, David? Why we're seeing this go like this is because the stock traded itself twice. You know, the shares that were available, people bought it, they've just resold it back to the market.
right. No,
That's
I
it.
get it.
And now we're all trading these 61.6%. That's all we're trading. So how much are we really doing? As I don't know. I don't understand this. I don't like it. To me, this isn't your norm. I know this happens. Okay, but with like very tightly held companies, but not my norm. Not something I'm used to in traditional finance, and everything they taught us in schools. Electric buses are excellent.
Yeah,
I haven't
hold on a
seen them yet.
second. So this is their main thing. So they only are selling in California, but this VinFast VF8 SUV, 399 a month on a lease, which includes the $7,500 EV lease bonus. Which
That's for
so I
the
think they're gonna.
bus. That's for the bus.
No. This is an SUV.
They have an SUV as well. Oh, sorry, I'm looking. I just looked at your screen.
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is their main thing they sell is this. Now they've done scooters in Vietnam and some other places, but this is their main attraction for the U.S.
And they're
So
selling. They're selling.
yeah, they're selling these in California. Oh, anyways,
Cool.
it's a nice looking deal. I think they. So one of the things is the Model Y is the best selling car in the world, right? And so obviously Tesla's doing something right by making the having had that become their best selling vehicle, and it's passed up every other car on the planet. So it makes sense you're going to come into the electric vehicle space that is what consumers want
Mhm.
is they want to do a crossover, and so that's where they're coming in. Anyways, I just got one more for us today, and that's Bluebird. Bluebird is BLBD. We haven't really discussed this one on a stock episode before. I have covered the company previously because of how many thousands of school buses that are electric they've sold in the United States. They're a company that's about 100 years old, or
Oh yeah.
yeah, about
Yeah.
100 years old, and they've been making buses all this time, and they've been slowly making a transition over to alternative fuels and into electric, and they're the leader in the U.S. in electric school buses. But there are other companies making electric school buses, not the only ones. I think there's currently about 6,000 electric school buses on the road in the United
Wow.
States.
Wow. It's a big
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as big as in China, where they have 500,000 electric buses around the country. Now, we're not a bus country, and China has 5 times the population the US has. But I'm saying that just all buses, China has something like
Wow.
500,000 electric buses running
See,
around town.
I'm not privy to a lot of the EV news, so
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Well,
That's
China
good.
doesn't make a big deal about it. So
Yeah.
to China, that's just like normal, and so it's very different because I hear people arguing like this won't work, this won't work. Well,
Yes.
it's happening on the other side of the oceans. We're not seeing it here in the US. This is why I'm saying it's like, look, you can argue whether this is a left wing or right wing issue and it's political, but it's happening regardless of whether you want it or not, whether you believe we're saving the environment or not. This
Mhm.
transition is happening.
Hmm.
And it's a matter of either catching up on the technology, which obviously Tesla's out there being a leader,
Hmm.
Rivian's out there being a leader, Lucid's out there being a leader.
Hmm.
Some of these other companies are out there being leaders, and people aren't getting it,
I
you
agree.
know.
I
And
agree.
so like I say all the time, I fear for the big three U.S. automakers that they figure what's going on before they lose all of their international business,
Hmm.
and by the time they figured out for the US, it may be too late for them. But, it's just kind of a different opinion.
Agreed.
But, that's what
I
I
mean,
see.
Bluebird. I guess the buses are gonna do all right.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just kind of a
It's a s-
steady.
it's a good looking company. They got bought out recently based on I mean not bought out. I mean investors decided to really come in here. With a big surprise in earnings. Reporting an earnings per share of 0.66. Against your shares, that's a surprise of 38%. That really moved the company, man.
Oh
And
God, they've gone up 30% in the last 2 weeks.
yes,
I didn't even
very,
realize that. I
yeah,
hadn't picked that. I hadn't looked at it
yeah,
in a bit.
yeah, yeah. This is excellent. Hey, they look good. They look good, and
I
I
think
like.
it's my show. I think my show is starting to affect some of
Yeah,
these
I think
stocks.
so. I think so. Definitely. I mean, your show highlights it pretty accurately. I'm going to say so far, so
Yeah,
far,
so far.
so
Yeah.
far. Okay, so we haven't hit any walls yet, but Bluebird, hey, looks good. I wouldn't buy it here personally. It's the moves are done for me. So
Mhm.
something is up 30%. Rarely I will touch unless I'm seeing like some parabolic price discovery type of action. I would just wouldn't touch. But hey, it looks good, and I think they're gonna do all right. And I think the buses are good. It's electric buses. I again not my industry, but I think we're gonna need a growing number of, and I think that there's a market, and this is the future. So you have to keep up with the Joneses, and that's why I get on your show because I I didn't really touch much of EV other than Tesla before, and now I'm being exposed to a lot of these electric vehicle companies, looking at some of their financials, looking at their charts, and of course, learning their news from you. Has been tremendous. That's why I get on the show and I encourage a lot of people. I send the link out to watch the show because this is the future and we have to keep up.
Well, it's good. This is definitely a different take on stock market investing, that's for
Yeah,
sure,
for
right?
sure, of
Because we're,
course.
we're we're really limiting,
Speculative.
what we're looking at. There's
Yeah.
about 30 electric vehicle stocks. Most of them are on the penny stocks, and
Hey, they got to do an index fund soon. They got to do an EV index fund. I think that would be a good one, like an ETF. And
well, that's probably not a bad idea. At
right,
some point, that'll probably happen.
right.
It might be something how to look at.
Maybe the regulators will hear us and they'll do it.
Yeah, you never know. Anyways, I think this was a pretty good show today.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you being on here, everybody. I want to thanks folks for listening in, and
Yeah.
please comment if there's something you'd like us to cover next week. Might be some different EV or green energy related stocks you'd like us to talk about. We'd be happy to cover it on the show. Otherwise, please like the video and help our engagement. And